report here for anyone who wants to grab a copy today.
Or like self-correct.
Good morning, Bill Baja, Resource Unit Conservationist for South Dakota NRCS.
Morning, everyone. Mark Martin, Hunting Access and Park Bill Coordinator with South Dakota Game Fish and Parks.
Good morning, Nate Grief, State Tribal Liaison for NRCS in South Dakota. This is my son Royce. He does not want to play. Ross Wilson back west.
Alicia Meyer.
Thank you very much for those introductions, and now we'll go online on Zoom, please. So we'll start with who I see on the screen. And we'll start with who I see on the screen. Chuck, if you want to start first, please just do your name and your organization, and turn on your cameras, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Chuck Pyle, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Partners for Fish and Wildlife Program, State Coordinator out of the Brookings office. Thanks.
Okay, turn on the camera next. Jeremy, would you like to go next?
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Not Afraid. Hope that's coming through all right. I'm with the Risk Management Agency out of the Billings Regional Office that serves Montana, Wyoming, and both Dakotas.
Thank you very much. Okay, Charles next, and then we'll go to Dana.
Hi, Dawn Schulte with Charles Mix Conservation District.
Thank you, Dana, and then we'll go to Rachel.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Dana Kleinsasser with USDA Rural Development out of the Huron office.
Good morning, everyone. Rachel Bush, Grassland Strategy Director for the Nature Conservancy.
Excellent, thank you. Now we have Danielle, and then we'll do Tate.
Good morning, Danielle Ryan. I'm the Conservation Stewardship Program Manager with NRCS.
Excellent, Tate, and then Katie.
Good morning, I'm Tate Lance. I'm the Assistant State Conservationist for Field Operations for Dakota NRCS in the Rapid City Field.
Tate, Katie, and then we'll do Rebecca.
Hi, you guys. My name is Katie Youthy. I work for the South Dakota Conservation Districts under their locally led project.
Rebecca, and then Brandon, please.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Blue with the Women's Ag Network.
Brandon, and then Travis, please.
Yeah, good morning, Brandon Walter, state biologist with the South Dakota NRCS.
Excellent, thank you. After Travis, we'll have Krista and Karen, please.
Morning, Travis Sentiment with Northern Prairies Land Trust in Sioux Falls.
Hi everyone, Krista Erdman, Science Integration Specialist for the Northern Great Plains Joint Venture in Rapid City.
Karen, and then Kevin Ellison, please.
Yeah, good morning. Karen Conley with the National Bison Association, but I'm based out of Denver, Colorado, but I'm located in western South Dakota.
Thank you. Kevin, you're next, and then we'll go to the next page.
Good morning, Kevin Ellison with American Bird Conservancy. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, on the screen we have Josh, and then we have Anthony. Why?
Good morning, everyone. Josh Lafers, the Director of Conservation for Audubon Great Plains.
Yes, Anthony Bly, SDSU Extension, Every Acre Counts Coordinator. Thank you, Anthony. Next we'll have Melissa and then Alina.
Good morning, everyone. I am Melissa Niles from the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association.
Thank you. Alina will be next, and then Lindsay Planting.
Yes, hi, I am Alina Hedman. I am with the Minnehaha Conservation District, and I am the Urban Conservation Education Coordinator with them.
Thank you, Lindsay, and then Anna. Oops, we can't hear you, Lindsay.
There we go. Sorry. Good morning, everyone. Lindsay Planting, Resource Unit Conservationist in the eastern part of the state. I'm sitting in for Michelle Burke for the Brookings area.
Hi,
everyone. I'm Anna Slage with the Nature Conservancy.
Thank you, Anna. Then we'll go to James and then Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. This is James with Grace Place Farm and Gardens on the east side of Sioux Falls. Appreciate your time.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Ryan Weniger, South Dakota Game Fish and Parks Habitat Program Administrator over in Sioux Falls.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. Then we have Megan and Tom Stockton, and then after Tom, so be John.
Sushan.
Sushan? Sorry, what's that? I get.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I didn't catch that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sushant, and I'm an assistant professor in SDSU Extension Water Resource Engineer Specialist based at Brookings, South Dakota. Nice to be part of this meeting. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. Thomas?
Hello, Thomas Dockin with Banner Associates, environmental scientist located in Pierce, South Dakota.
Thank you, Jonna. Then Sean.
Good morning, Jonna Ringcobb, representing South Dakota soybean this morning.
Sean Kelly, SDSU Extension, out of Winter.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for a nice crowd. Is there anybody that we missed online? There was quite a lot of folks online. If we missed you, please come off camera and so we'll recognize you. So this is a new experience for me because we had in-person meetings and then all virtual, and now we're doing virtual and in-person. So thank you for your patience. Okay, so with that, I just want to say again, welcome to the State Technical Committee meeting today. And we've got a very full agenda, so I'm not going to tarry long. There's some water and cookies on this table over there, and there's some restrooms down the hall. And then we'll go right into some announcements. And one of the first things that I wanted to do today is to recognize the work of our Soil Health Coalition, Soil Health Coalition, and partners for the Soil Health Awareness Week and Soil Health Awareness Day tomorrow, as proclaimed by our governor. So it's really exciting, and as healthy soil is the foundation of our great agricultural industry for South Dakota, it's really important, and we appreciate the work that the coalition and all the partners are doing for that resource. Okay. With that, I'm going to give it to my state conservationist, Tony Sinceri, for some opening remarks.
Thank you. So the first thing that I'd just like to acknowledge is how many partners we have in this. This is a group effort in order to address our conservation issues across South Dakota, and it does take every single one of us to make that happen. Thank you for taking the time to come and be a part of this particular group. So I like to start these particular meetings off with just what is the purpose? Why do we actually gather to hold these state technical advisory committees 4 times a year? And this is something that's in CFR. This is something that NRCS has been tasked with, and this is about getting advice on our Farm Bill conservation program. So I'm going to go through, and you're going to have to bear with me as I read through some of our responsibilities of our state technical advisory committee. Of course, whenever I touch this thing, it always does stuff. All right, so responsibilities of the state technical committee. 1, provide information, analysis, and recommendations to USDA on conservation priorities and criteria for natural resource conservation activities and programs, including application and funding criteria, recommend practices, and program payment percentages. 2, identify emerging natural resource concerns and program needs. 3, recommend conservation practice standards and specifications. 4, recommend state and national program policy based on resource data. 5, review activities of the local working groups to ensure state priorities are being addressed locally. 6, make recommendations to the state conservationists on requests and recommendations from local working groups. And 7, assist the NRCS with public outreach and information efforts and identify educational and producer training needs. So that is what the purpose of the state technical advisory committee is. We're looking at what we're trying to get on the ground through the Farm Bill and what we're trying to address across the state. This isn't specific, even though NRCS is hosting this event, this isn't just NRCS's meeting. This is our meeting as a partnership. This is our meeting to look at what the resource concerns are for South Dakota and to work on trying to find solutions for dealing with these resource concerns across the state. This is an open meeting. This is a meeting where anybody can come and provide advice and recommendations for how we deal with resource concerns across the state. NRCS's stake in this is NRCS is responsible for delivering voluntary incentive-based conservation across South Dakota. That's what our job is. And we, again, NRCS can't do that alone. So I'll have a chance to go more into the state of NRCS later down the agenda, but that's what the purpose of this meeting is. Please be vocal. If you're hearing something here at this meeting today and you have questions, ask. That's what the point of this meeting is. It's fairly informal. Ask your questions, try to get some answers. We got a lot of experts in this room that are going to have information about their own programs and just ideas. If there's something that's not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity for you to bring up whatever you want to discuss. There's going to be an opportunity to bring that up. Yes, we do have a full agenda, but part of this is talking about what we need to do in South Dakota to make sure we're on conservation. So again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being a part of this process. I'm really excited to see how many people we have in this room and how many individuals we have online. So just thank you for making time today to be a part of this.
All right, thank you, Tony. So with that, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is updates from our existing congressional delegates. And if you would like to come up with my room or Good
morning, everyone. Again, my name is Rebecca and I work for Senator Round. I work out of the Senator Sioux Falls office, but I travel across the state working with our regional offices to make sure we're connecting with all of our stakeholders. I also assist the senator in constituent services. So when constituents have questions or concerns, we can act as that liaison between federal agencies and the constituent. So I've had opportunity to work closely with Tony and Glenn and just appreciate the collaboration between our office and NRCS. I know a lot of you are probably feeling a lot of uncertainty right now with what's happening in Washington, D.C., and we absolutely respect that. Just ask that when you have questions or concerns, so even if it's your first time, to reach out to our office. We really truly try to be accessible and encourage you to reach out to our state offices. Our DC office is more than willing to connect with you also, but our state staff are fully prepared to be able to take in those questions and concerns and elevate that to the member pretty instantaneously. And we work really well with our DC staff to connect on policy and questions about what's happening in Congress and with the administration. I can talk a lot about the uncertainty that we're facing, but my colleague Mary is also here with us today. And for the best use of all of our time and for everyone else to have the opportunity to engage, just would ask that if you have specific questions or concerns about funding or maybe you have a personal situation that you're dealing with, to come and talk to Mary and I afterwards. We'll make ourselves available so we can really visit with you one-on-one and get to connect with you as an individual. So thank you so much for having us here today. And happy to be a resource to any of you at any time.
Thank you very much. I just want to check if there's anyone online that has come on since we do introductions that would like to be introduced. And then I will be moving to the USDA updates. Cool.
I'm just going to jump in just for a second. I need to make sure I express some appreciation to Senator Rounds' office and staff. Out of our delegation in South Dakota, Senator Rounds' staff has reached out numerous times through all this transformation that we've been going through and have been asking questions and digging in on how the agency is being affected through this change in administration. And I really appreciate the efforts that Senator Rounds' staff has made to try to figure out what's going on in the state and trying to provide support where they're able to. So I just thank you so much for that additional help.
Thank you. Okay, so now we'll do the updates of the USDA agencies serving South Dakota. So the first one I have on there is USDA Rural Development. And Dana, I believe you're online.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, got you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And it's good to see everyone this morning. As I mentioned earlier, again, I'm Dana Kleinsasser, Deputy State Director for USDA Rural Development in South Dakota. And if you're not familiar with rural development, we're a sister agency to NRCS and FSA, and we're co-located with other USDA agencies in 7 offices in the state. And we currently have 28 staff. So just to give you a little picture of what rural development looks like in South Dakota. Just very high level comments today for those that aren't familiar with our agency. We have 3 main program areas: rural business, rural utilities, and rural housing. And then all of our programs fall under those 3 main program areas. Our mission is we're committed to helping improve the economy and quality of life in rural America and in tribal communities. So it's a pretty straightforward mission, and all of our programs support that. And we have a lot of programs and lots of variety there in things we can do to assist in rural areas of our state and across the country. As I was thinking about my comments today, one particular thing came to mind is just thinking about community members in rural areas and the many hats that they wear, whether it's a fire department and you're maybe part of that as a volunteer or in another capacity, maybe a home buyer or a homeowner, county commission, entrepreneur, school board, healthcare worker, city council, child care provider, maybe you're a lender or you work at a bank, economic development, maybe you're on the economic development board or you're an economic development professional, board of directors for a nonprofit, or there may be others too, but those are many of the hats that many of us wear in our rural communities. And I would just encourage you to stop and think about that today. And if you are involved in any of those areas or know of someone who is, I would encourage you to reach out to us or have the person reach out to us and let's visit about our programs, because we very possibly can assist and help your rural community or your rural area of the state with what rural development has to offer. So our programs are all there and available. We do have a couple that are on pause or on hold yet with the new administration, but 99% of them are open for business, and we're accepting applications and processing applications. So I did want to mention that in case anyone has questions with that. And then partnerships. I wanted to mention that too. I know Tony made note of partners in the room in his opening remarks there, and that really reminded me of how much rural development works with and thrives on the partnerships that we have in the state. And as we did the introductions, I noticed several in the room or virtually that are partners of ours currently. And there's maybe others that we could work in partnership together. So we appreciate that, and we'd love to talk to you if we don't already have that partnership going. So those are my comments for today. I do appreciate NRCS specifically allowing us to have a few minutes of time today. And I will put my email and my contact information in the chat. And if you can't get to it there, feel free to reach out to Colette or Tony, and they have it and can share it with you. And reach out. Would love to visit and brainstorm a little bit about maybe possibilities of working with rural development. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Colette. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And again, if anybody has any questions online, please do questions in the chat and we'll try to respond to them.
Morning again. I guess I'm on the agenda a couple times today, so my first comments are just on Conservation Reserve Program. We're working under an extension of the 2018 Farm Bill, which would mean that we're still under that acreage cap that was authorized with the 2018 Farm Bill. Authorities have yet to be turned back on nationally to accept signups or conduct any new business on CRP. We're basically in housekeeping or maintaining the existing contracts with succession of interest and contract management, just maintaining the acreage that's currently under contract. Again, waiting for those authorities. We did submit 2025 soil rental rates. They were due by the end of January. Word is those are going to be announced, approved, I guess you would say, at the same time that the announcement for signups would start. So I've heard numerous dates. I'm not going to speculate or promise anymore on when I think it's going to happen, but every day that goes by, we're one day closer to crunch time. Working towards that. I think I'm going to talk some emergency conservation program, another drought relief here in a minute, but any questions? CRP or conservation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next on the updates for USDA, we have the list of management and I believe online. Have the board, please. For the management and building.
Good morning. I can't hardly hear you there, Colette. I don't know if our risk management agency was up next or not.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Good morning. My name is Jeremy Not Afraid. I'm with the Risk Management Agency in Billings, Montana. I'm a senior risk management specialist up here in Billings. I'm happy to be here with you guys. I guess in a former life, I was an NRCS employee, a district conservationist in Montana for about 20 years. So I've been to these types of meetings before in the past. For those of you that might not know the charge and the mission of Risk Management Agency, we're actually the agency that administers and oversees the federal crop insurance program. We implement federal crop insurance in a private partnership with approved insurance providers. So federal crop insurance is sold and delivered solely through our private crop insurance agents. You can find a list of those agents that's available on our website. There's actually an agent locator tool on our RMA website where you can actually find their list of crop insurance agents. There are 10 RMA regional offices scattered across the nation that serves our farmers and ranchers, and they're usually clustered in about 4 state areas, just like how we are over here in Billings. The real only update that I have for you guys today is the sales closing date for March 15th that's coming up. It's the final date to purchase or make changes to crop insurance on spring planted crops in South Dakota. The March 15th date is for the 2025 crop year. There's also a site within our website where a producer could use if they're interested in purchasing new insurance or maybe making some changes, where there's a cost estimator on our RMA website where they could get an estimate for their premium amount. I guess just on a side note, coming from South Dakota, in recent weeks, we've been getting questions coming in from for ERP for linkage, because there is that linkage if a producer did receive an ERP payment. So we have been getting those questions, and because there is a requirement where they have to purchase some type of insurance, I believe above a 60% level. So that is coming out of South Dakota, and we are answering those on a case-by-case basis and hopefully getting the word out to everybody out there. So glad to be a part of your guys' meeting today. I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Would there be any questions for me? Again, please feel free to put something in the chat if you have questions regarding any of the speakers or at any time during the meeting. So, okay, Tony, you are it.
Thank you, Colette. All right, so I just wanted to touch on a couple of things regarding where NRCS is at right now. So we, with NRCS having so much connection to the Inflation Reduction Act over the last 4 years, we're having to go through and do a lot of review. This is happening at the USDA level. The secretary as well as sub-cabinet is going through and looking at all these Inflation Reduction Act funds, and they're trying to determine if they were spent appropriately. At this time, we have been freed up to move forward with the Farm Bill contracts, agreements, and getting our producers paid. We do have a couple of things that are still on hold as of this week. Some of those items are related to well, most of them are related to new updates. We've instructed our staff yesterday to hold on any new obligations across the state. Main reason that we're asking everybody to hold right now is there's specific language in our ranking that ties contracts back to historically underserved and socially disadvantaged producers. While that information is in statute, it's still being reviewed to make sure that we're complying with executive orders. So we have a lot of the information right now in front of our Office of General Counsel to make sure that we're not in conflict with the executive order. So we're hoping to have that cleared up relatively soon so we can start moving forward and getting these obligations moving forward. We have a lot of producers that are waiting and ready for these contracts. We still are in a holding pattern. It's on the little list I have here. It says partner contracts and agreements, anything related to IRA is currently paused. It's a better color than red. Red means it's on hold. I don't know how long hold is, but pause, it's right now, it's just currently paused. So I'm hoping that that's going to move forward here relatively soon. The administration and the secretary has been good about trying to honor current obligations and contracts that are already underway. So I do have an expectation that's going to happen. It just hasn't been yet. So I do have to apologize on behalf of the agency for any of our partners that have contracts with us that are waiting for payments. As soon as we have the ability to do that, that's going to be our highest priority. So that's really where most of our staff is right now. And we've been working through our ranking process. We've been working through our planning process. And now we've gotten up to the point of obligation. We're ready to start obligating contracts. And that's where we're kind of held up. We have had some level of disruption, as pretty much every other agency has right now, as we work on changing into this new administration. As many of you have heard, we had several of our probationary employees across the state in the last 3 weeks were terminated. We're working on actually bringing the vast majority, I think everybody pretty much back who wants to come back. We're still trying to figure out what that exactly means. We're still working through some of that, and there's still some information that the department is looking for as far as what does the overall structure of NRCS and other agencies look like moving forward. Is there opportunities for NRCS to find some additional efficiencies? Yes. And we're going to be put in the position to try to find some of those efficiencies as we move forward. So is there going to be some change in how NRCS conducts business as we move into this next year? Most likely. I'm just being really honest with everybody. There's probably going to be some changes. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but what I can confirm is that NRCS is dedicated to getting conservation on the ground. Even with some of the new, we had some new pop-up over the last couple of weeks regarding our Watertown building. That building is losing its lease, and we're going to have to figure out what to do there. And I'm committed to everyone here in this room that we're going to figure out a solution for that. We may not be providing the service out of Watertown. It may be out of an adjoining county, but we're going to find a way to make sure that Cottington County continues to receive services moving forward. And that's what we have to be able to do as an agency, is continue to be flexible and adaptable and find ways to continue servicing our producers across the state. Because that's what our job is. And every single NRCS employee understands that is what their job is to get out and make sure that our producers are getting high quality service. So we're going to be flexible. We're going to find ways to make this work, regardless of what comes. And if anybody has questions about any of this process at any point, or if you're hearing something, please bring it to my attention so we can try to address it quickly. Because again, this is about finding efficiencies. This is about making sure that we're getting the conservation on the ground across the state. NRCS knows its place is to help with American rural prosperity. That's part of what our job is in delivering this incentive-based voluntary conservation. And you'll hear me keep saying voluntary incentive-based conservation, because that's what NRCS does. That is what we're good at doing. We're going to continue doing this as we move into as we continue to move into this new administration. So we're still waiting. We're still right now, and this is kind of a weird time to kind of have this type of a meeting and give this type of address because there is so many unknowns right now. We're still waiting to figure out if we're moving forward with a continuing resolution. And that's going to end up having an impact on us also. We end up shutting down for a while, and I'm hoping that we don't. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that impacts us moving forward. And then as we move into whatever the department's looking for as far as a potential restructure, there has been a requirement through executive order that all agencies look at a potential reduction in force to try to get the government more streamlined. We're looking at that. We're seeing what we can do to try to get as efficient as we possibly can. I have to see what that looks like. I don't know what that structure looks like yet. Task force, we're kind of in negotiation phases right now, so we'll see. For all the partners in the room and all the partners that are on this call, we may be coming to you and asking for help and making sure that we're providing this service to our producers across the state. And this is a team effort. Getting resource concerns addressed across South Dakota is important for South Dakota, and that's why we're all here. So just, I guess, be prepared. Be prepared that we may be coming and asking for help at some point. At least get the information out in the one-on-one. So again, thank you. We're going to continue working hard from NRCS. We're going to continue doing conservation on the ground, and we're going to continue to lean on our partners as we do this. So just again, thank you so much for being here. And does anybody have any questions for me? I'm going to be here for the whole meeting, but if anybody has any questions for me right now about the state of NRCS, I'm happy to try to answer. Thanks. The question is, in reference to both of those kind of triggers for additional review or one more than the other? So just I want to make sure I got the question right, and so folks on the screen can hear you too. So your question is, does Climate Smart and does DEI have any additional impacts on our programs? Is that what you're asking? On agreements. On agreements. Yeah. Yes. Those were items that were flagged as the reviewers were going through looking at agreements. They are giving us some opportunities with many of those agreements that if there is that specific language in there related to DEI or climate smart or climate change or anything along those lines, they're asking us to go in and review and see if we were to remove that language out of the agreement, would it have a severe impact on the agreement? So they are giving us some ability to go in there and do some changes or even potentially pull or reduce, well, mostly just pull the Inflation Reduction Act money out of those agreements and see if we can fund them through other agreements. So we are being given some level of flexibility to try to do it if it's not going to have a severe impact on the end. The benefit that we have and how we've used Climate Smart, and that's not Climate Smart, but the Inflation Reduction Act funding in South Dakota is funding very similar practices that we've already been funding. Our main focus in South Dakota has been soil health. And most of our practices, that's way different now. We are still doing the same conservation practices that we've done in the past. NRCS, as we come into April, NRCS has been around for 90 years. Our job has been to prevent another Dust Bowl. And we have that opportunity to continue to show that there's relevance for conservation in general. And that's almost a misnomer out there right now. Conservation means the wise use of resources. It's not about preservation. It's not about not using something. It's absolutely using something. It's just using it wisely. We want to make sure that agriculture is sustainable into the future. That's what we want. We want to keep South Dakota farming. That's what our purpose is. Sometimes we have to go and provide some technical assistance to help farmers and ranchers make wise decisions so that they will continue farming, that their generations after them will be doing fine. So we will continue to utilize the same practices that we have in South Dakota to make sure that still happens. So when we're dealing with IRA or any other funding opportunities that may come, sometimes we have to change our messaging on how we're going out the door and saying, what are the outcomes of this particular practice? And we may have to communicate that differently depending on who's looking for that information. But the practice at the end of the day is still a very similar practice. We're doing cover crops, we're doing cover crops. We're doing reduced tillage, that's what we're doing. Does it have a benefit in different ways? It absolutely does. And over the last 4 years, we've communicated it in a very specific way that it's benefiting, but it's always has. So that's, yes. So ultimately, there is an impact. We're working through it. And that's something that the secretary is already recognizing, is that a lot of the work that we've invested in using these IRA dollars, it's going to work that we've already been doing, and it's been proven to work. We haven't invested in any brand new technology or something that would be tied to any potential new green deal or anything like that. We've been working on the same practices that we've been doing in South Dakota since we've been doing practices. I kind of worked around your question a little bit, but did I get it? Thank you. All right. Any other questions?
Okay, so there was some feedback online about the inability to hear, so I did turn up the speaker here, and is that better online for those folks? Hopefully it is, and that'll make it better online. So thank you, Tony. That was a good explanation, and I think it's important as we think about why we're here and what we're all concerned about, our natural resources, is we have a conservation plan, and with that, we'll be moving into the ecological sciences update and talking about who they are and what do they do.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to keep this really brief because we've got a lot of good speakers that are going to share some information about drought. So I just want to, again, I'm the state resource conservationist. I lead the ecological sciences team with South Dakota NRCS. And I want to remind you that, like Tony talked about, getting input from our partners is extremely important. And everything that we do and have done is based on conservation practice standards, right? And a good conservation plan, which Colette mentioned. So we do, in South Dakota, we've decided that we're going to update our conservation practice standards in April and October every year. My staff and I are largely, obviously, responsible for all the ecological sciences practices, some of which the soils division also helps us with. And then, of course, Jim and his team are responsible for the engineering practices. So if there's ever a conservation practice standard that you're using or your producers are using and it's not quite working the way you think it should, and you want to make comments, please reach out to me or Jim or Nathan, and we'll definitely get you in touch with the right discipline lead to talk about those conservation practice standards. But with that, I know in South Dakota, every part of South Dakota is at least in moderate drought status right now. So I'm going to turn it over to my staff to discuss that topic and ways to deal with drought and be more resilient on your land. All right, Marcia, I think is first. Thank you, Jessica. That was not. Oh, no. There. I might stand behind here just like this.
My screen, man.
You're doing great.
There we go. It's okay. Maybe the multiple screens was a bad idea for today. Right. Swap screen again.
Thank you for your patience as
Yeah.
we figure this out. It's always a challenge with new technology. Making everything work quickly.
Yes. Jokes.
Oh, I don't do it. You're the,
You're
yeah,
there.
you're the dad joke queen. Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
This is different. You want a joke?
Go ahead. Let's have a joke.
So we just got done doing a bunch of fire break trainings across the state for our employees, so I looked up a bunch of fire jokes and I apologize, but what do you call a lady who burns all of her credit card statements? Bernadette.
That'd be
All
fine.
right.
Yep. I just so I
That'll
can
work.
see
Yeah.
what we're covering here. Yeah.
Okay.
Seems like it's not, seems like one works the other.
I'm getting that now.
Got another one?
Another joke?
Yeah.
Um,
I don't have any.
what do you call a coat that's on fire? I don't know how to get it. A blatant. Daryl, can you get it up there?
So the slides are in the handout.
Yeah.
That was dropped in there too, and so that might help move things along too. And you want to go ahead and start, but
Okay.
I want to make
Yeah,
sure.
I will get this in there.
Okay. I just kind of need to see what we're talking about. Okay. So if you can leave it for so I can see what I'm talking about. And if you want to go to the
But we'll
next
want
slide.
to have it on the screen here too.
I know, I'm trying.
There you go.
The slides are on page 7 of the handout.
Yeah, mine,
you
I'm not
see
sure
it
we've
now?
got Emily's in there. That's good. I got it. Okay, are we ready? You're doing great.
I
Ricky.
know.
You're doing
I'm
great.
Sure.
It's very stressful when things don't work the way you
Yeah.
intend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we were asked to talk a little bit about drought and managing for low moisture situations. And so if you want to go to the next slide, please. I think it's important for us all to realize that when we talk about managing drought on cropland, we're really the impact of those things that we did last fall following the harvest are really affecting how our soils and our crop fields respond to drought today, right? So all of those things that we did last fall, how much residue was left out in the field? Were there any tillage passes performed? How aggressive was that tillage? How much residue was left? All of those things that we did last fall are impacting how our soils respond to drought or to lack of moisture today. And so when we plan with producers, can go to the next slide, when we plan with producers, we think about that. We think about, what's been done, what conditions typically happen during the course of a growing season, right? Because it's South Dakota. And so we know within any given year, that pendulum can swing from one end to the other very quickly, right? And so, just for fun, I looked up the recent ag outlook, before today's presentation, and it called for a near equal chance of above normal or below normal precipitation.
and a near equal chance of above normal or below normal temperature, right? So right now we're sitting in the below normal, but that pendulum can continue to swing. And so go ahead. And so, when we think about how does NRCS assist producers, well, we don't just manage for the event that's occurring today, right? We help our producers manage for the big picture, right? We help them with their individual problems that they're trying to resolve, with their individual goals that they want to achieve. We do that with our technical skills and our conservation practices, right? And we have hundreds of practices available. And the practice that's beneficial to one producer may not be beneficial to someone else, or they might use them in a different way. And so when we meet with the producer, we go out onto the landscape, out into the field with our producers, and we help them make decisions specific to them and to their operation. That's what we do, right? But with that said, right, we're planning for the big picture. We know it's dry today. There are some things that we can talk about, some things that we can consider. So if you go to the next slide there. All right, we've heard Kent Fligger, who will be talking later, talk to us about soil health, right? We know those things. And so, it's dry today. And so we can think about how can we minimize soil disturbance. We can't undo the things that were done last fall, but if we were planning additional tillage operations this spring, that's something that we can eliminate, or at a minimum do the just what's necessary to achieve the desired objective, right? We're gonna minimize those things. If we, we're going to evaluate our existing stands. Maybe we've planted an overwintering cereal grain, and we have to evaluate whether or not that grain's going to make it, right? And so we're going to consider if we decide to terminate it, what's the best way to do that? How are we going to manage that residue and prepare for that next crop? Another thing to think about with keeping our residue on the land is to consider if we're grazing our residue, right? Maybe we need to make the decision to pull that livestock off sooner rather than later to help us, not disturb that soil surface, keep enough residue out there, and be able to prepare for planting, our next crop. Another thing that we want to consider today, that we can manage today is our crop rotation, right? So a planting season drought does not necessarily equate to a growing season drought. But we have the ability to make some decisions for each individual producer to help them make adjustments to their rotation that can benefit them, right? We may not plant all of the crops we're planting. We might consider a portion of our acres going into low water tolerant crops. What that is going to depend on each individual producer and their needs. Perhaps we're going to be starting to think about supplemental feed, right? Are there things that we can grow that will provide, supplemental feed if we don't get the moisture we need and we need to make it to that? We need to have an alternative, right? When it comes to fertilizer, nutrient applications, again, we don't want to limit our yield potential, but maybe there are things we can do to provide some insurance. Maybe if some producers might choose to only put down, they might reduce their yield potential. They might plan for maybe 10% less or 20% less. Other producers might say, I don't want to give up that potential. I want to consider, I want to have that potential available to me. So maybe something they can do, something we can help them with is the split application of nutrients, right? And so now they can put down a portion of their nutrients early season, come back and pick it up based on what the potential outcome of that field or that yield potential is going to be. Those are conservation, those things are tied to conservation practices that we can assist producers with, right? So all of our conservation practices help the producer make decisions that are specific to their outfit, to their farm, and then to the environmental conditions that are happening today, right? Another example that we can do is help producers reduce water loss. If somebody is irrigating, we can help them invest in their irrigation efficiency. If they're dry land, again, we want to keep that soil covered. We want to prevent that evaporation and transpiration losses from happening. An example of how to prevent moisture losses is, let's say we do have that cover crop out there. We might need to make that decision, the producer might need to make that decision to terminate that cover crop sooner rather than later. That's an example of adjusting the practice to meet the individual producer's needs on the current growing situation, right? And then, lastly, we have a suite of conservation practices available that we can use as tools to help our individual producers manage their farms, their ranches, based on their individual objectives. And so, do I have one more slide? I'm sorry. Okay. So, one thing we know about drought is the ag industry, is usually the first economic sector to be affected by drought. And so the ability for our soils to capture and retain moisture throughout the growing season, is like a bank account. Even my weather forecaster the other day, I was listening to the news, and if we can get the water, the moisture into the soil, it's money in the bank. We've heard that saying before, and it's very, very true. And we use our conservation practices to do that. And so, those practices that help us with infiltration, that help us with retention, those things also help us to increase soil organic matter, improve soil structure, and ultimately reduce things like wind erosion, nutrient losses, all of those things that help keep our producers profitable and sustainable. Randy. Mm-hmm. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. Okay. You switch to the sheet. This link. They're all sharing it. So. Yeah. Okay. So I was tasked with talking about the grazing land side of things. So Marcia had a good introduction with speaking on like outlooks. We don't really know what's going to happen. It's the future. How do we know what's going to happen? You want to go to the next slide? Thank you. This is something Stan Wolf shared with me a while ago. I thought it was really cool. We have the water cycle, and we either go through a drought phase or a flood phase. And suddenly there's panic, and then we fix it, and then we got okay, it's good. We got this, So, we can put ahead. Oh, that's not good. I had cool animation, sorry, but so right now we are in this, I think, kind of energy stage right now, but where should we really be doing our drought planning to get effective? Is it really here and here? Anybody? Yes, no. We should be doing it over here. Just that's my high horse for the day. So next time there's flood, we can plan it out, right? So, like Marcia said, what we did in the fall last year is impacting what is what happened in the spring this year. So our grazing management practices that we grazed it too short, that's gonna probably that's what's gonna let us spring and summer and fall. So thinking about that water cycle is kind of important in our economy. So next slide. I don't know if this one. So Stambolt, Mitch Faulkner, and a few other folks from the NRCS put together what we call the South Dakota Drought Tool. It's a Excel-based tool that I'll hopefully be able to show you later for the time that looks at the last 2 years of precipitation and weights it with some different factors, and then compares it to historical averages to figure out where we're at in like within a normal production. So based on precipitation, how close to normal are we? So these maps, like in the winter when there's nothing going, kind of weird. Like, well, nothing's a problem. But this is so as of now, any areas in the red are below normal precipitation for the last 2 years. So as you can see, I think people can tell that, like you drive past dams, they're getting dried up, that type of thing. And then, so as we go further east, we've gotten a little bit more moisture, so they're a little bit closer to normal.
To move the next slide, Emily, it's not showing the transitions.
Okay, well, so then we run another map. I run another map that shows the future, the forecast. So based on what we have now, and if we assume that every other month we get normal or historical average precipitation, what our peak forage production will be, it kind of looks like this map. So, no, it doesn't look like it. Go back. Sorry. So it looks like this map. It's really similar what will look like in like June, July. So, but that can change. So if you go to the next map, so this is what March 2023 looked like. Pretty similar, right? We've got we were pretty dry. We had an open winter. So going into the spring, we were kind of like it's pretty dry. So then this was what happened in August last year. We were close to normal across the state. There were dry pockets across the state. I will give you that, but for the most part, we were pretty close to normal because this normal is like it goes to like 95%. So some people will get 92%. I don't know. But you can see that there was a lot of drought up in the Arctic County area. That was pretty true. There's a lot of fires in there. So that's and then in 2022, we had that. This is what it looked like in March. Next slide. And that's what it looked like in July. So you can see we kind of kept some of those signals throughout the year based on like it was a dry winter. That really plays into this population. So drought is historical across the Great Plains. This was a study done by NOAA that looked at drought or precipitation cycles from 1916 to 2015, so 100 years of precipitation. And they found that short-term droughts are usually every 5 to 10 years, and then we have longer-term droughts. Those are less frequent. So 20 to 120 years, that's when we have those droughts. But flash droughts is one of the terms they use is pretty common in the Great Plains. I think we all know that, but I think we get surprised every time because we're like, oh, it's fine, it's fine. There's a drought, but pretty normal. So we should be planning for drought and it's on our pricing plan. So we know it's going to happen. We should be looking for it. But I think we're all optimists. But it's always going to be. So that's always like, I think that's where we're at. So next slide. So it's always good to include a drought plan in your grazing plan. Preaching to the choir. Go ahead. You want to
For the monitoring because it won't show the mullet you have underneath there.
That's why. So planning for a drought. What should you consider when you're planning for a drought? The biggest thing is trigger dates. Looking at different times of the year to figure out if you should pull the trigger on making a management decision. So, like our drought tool helps you look at the moisture. Is the moisture adequate to support the livestock on the land? That's one of the big uses of our drought tool. And it shouldn't be, our drought tool is a tool. Like you don't only use a screwdriver to fix the pickup, right? You need a full suite of tools to fix your pickup. So same thing with freezing, you should be using the full suite. Not only using like our drought tool, but also a freezing tool. Going out looking at the landscape. What are the water resources like in the place? Do you have good water developed? Do you have pipeline and tanks for water? Or do you just have a bunch of dams that rely on service water? Taking that inventory is really important in development and grading plan too. So the NRCS can help with that. We can help inventory the resources for you and show you maybe where there might be need for putting pipeline or something like that. So looking at moisture, especially different times of the year, a lot of our moisture comes in April, May, and June, because that's like the critical period of moisture. So even though we've been here, maybe we'll get a winter rain in March, April, and May, and that will set us up for a great year. But it might not be there. So figuring out when those trigger dates for your operation are really important. Go ahead. On the next one. Oh, there they are. Okay. Also, prior condition of pastures was one thing that I think Marcia said, what your pasture looks like before. In the fall, if it grazes too short, you might not set yourself up for success in the drought. And then the availability of alternative forages. So like moving that cropland that Marcia's got, plant some, sedan grass or something to get my cows through. We don't need the cropland, Marcia. Yeah, multi-purpose. So, okay, go ahead. And then whatever works for your operation. And then of course, monitoring is really important for any type of plan. Like, how do you know if you're being successful? So monitoring the precipitation can help inform the decisions. You can do that. My favorite tool is Cobras. I've got it on my phone, and then I can just enter it in, and I've got this whole list of precipitation for my branch, or down the branch. But anybody can do Cobras. All you have to do is buy a rain gauge. They have a website with links to buy them for $40 and it lasts a long time. But you can monitor your precipitation and keep track of it through there. And then a lot of like NOAA and the National Weather Service use that data. So plug in NOAA, plug in Cobras because there's a tribe, a membership tribe in there. Not doing anything, but there's lots of South Dakota would be awesome. So, and Cobras also informs our drought tools. So if you are like good at putting precipitation data in, you might make it into a drought once I figure it out. Also monitoring utilization. A lot of people think I'm leaving money on the ground if I'm leaving residue out there. They're leaving stubble height, but leaving standing residue helps with plant recovery, especially if you're leaving green stuff. It helps those roots continue to put root exudates in the ground and talk to soil microbes and build organic matter. But it also can catch snow in the winter and that standing stuff, which also helps with for capturing the moisture like much. And then having plant cover also reduces evaporation. So you can have more of that moisture for your plants and and then monitor your livestock. By condition scoring for all the different types of livestock. So what are your livestock looking like? Are they telling you that you need to do something different? That's the case. Maybe some alternative forages or taking them off the pasture sooner just because they might be stressed and not want them off. So there's also like people scoring, which is kind of fun. I'm sure all of you will find. But looking at there's different apps you can actually get that look at the food and see like if you have enough protein in your pastures or not, which like the bugs in the cows rumen, they really need protein to do the to help the cow survive and do. So, it's kind of fun. We're very good with this for the freezing tool. Okay, I don't know what's in the first slide.
Our resources.
Oh, okay, so from our resources, I'm probably like way out of time, so I'm not gonna show you the self-pay tool, but it's super easy. You go to our South Dakota NRCS website and go to technical resources and then range and pasture with a whole page on drought stuff. And so you can get the drought tool there, it's free to use, you just have to have an internet connection. And then we also have the South Dakota grazing tool, which can help you inventory your grazing resources. Those are both free Excel-based products. We also have lots of great resources on drought from other partners. The South Dakota Grassland Coalition put together a great website, great for rain plan for drought. It's like sddroughtplan.org. They have tons of resources, videos from a lot of their producers on what their drought plan is. So people are curious, I don't even know what that means, drought plan. They go through their whole plan. What herd A is and herd B and what's their sugar. So it's really helpful. The Growing Resilience website also has a lot of drought resources on floods put together. Separate page for us that just has drought fact sheets and podcasts and other website links as well. There's podcasts from Stan Bolt and Mitch Faulkner and Jim Bostich and Oliver Chu. So lots of great opportunities for driving and listening to podcasts. And then the South Dakota Grassland Coalition and South Dakota Soil Health Coalition have mentors that can help producers through a drought situation as well. I think mentors are really important, especially with a lot of young people coming up, older people who have been through a few droughts, and that be good to think those to be so that I think that's last thing. Thanks for listening. And I think it's 10 minutes. Yeah. Hold on. Thank you.
All right, so while Daryl is getting the slides for the presentation pulled up, I can get started actually without that. If you will look in your handout at the first slide, I think it's should look like this. I'm just going to give an update. In South Dakota, we did recently an update to our cropland infield soil health assessment. And so this assessment is what our planners use, our field office planners, and myself and a few other specialists use to assess resource concerns on cropland related to soil. And so we're looking at organic matter depletion, compaction, aggregate stability, and then soil organism habitat loss or degradation. And so with this assessment, we're able to come up with whether a producer might have a resource concern on their cropland, those 4 resource concerns. So the updates we made, really what we did is we simplified the form and the assessments. The areas that are circled there are the 3 areas that we made updates to, and we actually got rid of a couple of options for those indicators and how we assess them. And so what we did is we took out the assessment options that were really kind of arbitrary or that were up to almost too much interpretation based off of which set of eyes we're looking at that particular field. And so the options that we have left now for assessments are science-based and ones that we have actual data to back them up. So for example, if you can read it, the ponding and infiltration indicator, we just have the one assessment criteria under there now, and that's basically where our planners will look at infiltration tests that they'll do on the field, and then they will time that infiltration test. And then we actually have a set of data, and actually it goes back to Emily's line of work under the rangeland assessment. We have a lot of data that was collected by some of my predecessors over years and years on different types of soils and ecological sites. And so we know that if we do an infiltration test on a certain soil type, we know the range of what is good for infiltration. and what is way on the other end where we have a lot of work to do to infiltrate precipitation. So that's that indicator and how we're going to assess that one. The next one will be water stable aggregates. There used to be 3 options under that one. We've reduced that one down to 1. And now we will be using basically an infield slate test, or what we call a Hornada test. And that's where the planter will take a small aggregate from the soil surface. They will place it in a container. And basically over the course of 5 minutes, it'll evaluate what happens to that aggregate. So if it completely dissolves rapidly, it's going to get a score of 1, for example. If it stays 100% intact over the course of that 5 minutes and then being dumped a couple of times, then it gets higher score of 5 or 6. So the higher you score, the more stable your aggregates are. The more stable your aggregates are, the more likely you are to infiltrate water well, able to hold on to that water, make it available for the plants, along with a host of other benefits. And the last one we'll look at that we made changes is soil color. And soil color is how we evaluate soil organic matter in the field. Obviously, the best way to identify or evaluate your soil organic matter is send it into a soil testing lab, and they will give you the exact percentage. What we do is we compare it with we have a Munsell soil color book, where they'll take an aggregate and they'll find the exact color of what that soil is, and then they're going to compare that back to what the soil scientists said the soil color was when they did those soil surveys 10, 20, 30, 40, or 50 years ago. So basically we're saying if it's the same color as what the soil scientists described and they mapped those soils, we're saying you're okay, or if it's even darker, we're saying you're okay. But if it's lighter than what those soil scientists described, then we're making that assumption that the soil organic matter has reduced over the past several years. Okay, so that's just a quick update on what our planners will be doing to assess cropland soil health. All right, we'll go to the next slide, please, Daryl. Okay, so through this title up here, just mostly to catch people's attention. So we've got the file there of drought insurance policy, and then I'm asking you to use soil health principles as your drought mitigation plan. So there was a study done fairly recently. It was completed in 2021. And if anyone's interested in the study, they can contact me and I can get them a copy of that sent. Done by some researchers through several universities and some other organizations. And they looked at soil organic matter percentage and corn yields over basically the whole corn belt. So all the way from Pennsylvania, Ohio, all the way through the I-states and into the northern plains. There were 754 counties that were in the study. It was a multi-year, many-year study. So it was not small, where they just looked at one field. Many states, many counties over many years. And so what they determined is that one of the highlights of this study was that for an increase of 1% soil organic matter in your soil during a severe drought year, you'll have higher yield. It's basically 32 bushels an acre than someone that had 1% soil organic matter less than in your field. And so that's a big deal for South Dakota. Obviously, we're in moderate drought for the whole state, and 42% of our state is in severe drought right now. So I'm optimistic. We got spring coming. We'll get some rain. But if we are to stay in those drought conditions, high organic matter fields will on average yield better. And so that's important obviously for our state's economy. It's important for our producers' pocketbooks. It's also important. I know we've got our risk management agency representative with us today. So as part of that study, they also determined that if you have 1% higher organic matter, that you are 36 to 37% less likely to need a crop insurance payout that particular year. So that's a big deal. That's an economic importance fact for us to know for our state, for our producers, for risk management agency, really everyone involved. So that's a little quick tidbit on that. So soil health principles. These are what I beat the drum on a daily basis as part of my job. Very passionate about our soil health principles because I know they work both for improving our soils throughout the state and also for our producers' pocketbooks. So these are those principles: maximize soil cover, minimize soil disturbance, maximize biodiversity, maximize living roots, and integrate livestock. Next slide, please. So Marcia did a great job of talking about some things that we did maybe this fall or past fall or even previous year, and how that can maybe affect what's going to take place over this year if we do have a drought. I'm going to focus on some specific things that a producer can do this year to help mitigate some drought effects. The photos I'm going to show you throughout the presentation were all taken from 2017 in Beetle County. And so 2016 was similar to last year. We had rain, really good rain in the spring, and then it completely shut off the rest of the summer all the way through the winter. And 2017 was a lot drier than average, so we had a kind of an 18-month drought in Beetle County. So it took place. So this photo you're seeing here is of a producer that I'm fortunate to work with and I've learned a lot from. And so what he's got there is obviously soybeans in 2017. And you can see there's a lot of residue that's on the soil surface. So he's a long-term no-tiller, practices all the soil health principles that we listed there. So what you can't maybe see quite as well, you can maybe see on your printed photo, you see there's a lot of corn residue. 2016 you had corn, that's all laying here on the ground, and some of it's still standing, you can see there from harvest. After, just prior to corn harvest, he broadcast cereal rye on it. So he was doing that because he wants to have a lot of biomass going into his soybeans. So his intent was to allow that cereal rye to come in the spring. And then he was actually going to plant green into there, so that cereal rye would have still been alive and growing when he planted the soybeans, and then terminate that cereal rye shortly after planting the soybeans. But we were very dry in the spring. We didn't want to use any more moisture because that potentially would have affected his soybean crop. So what he did is he terminated early. So he still had that cover crop in there, the cereal rye, but he terminated early. The reason I'm telling you that is because there's a lot of flexibility in these soil health principles, especially when you're looking at the covers or the cover crops. Is one of those practices. Cover crops have a lot of flexibility. So he could have let that cereal rye grow and maybe not even planted the beans. He could have used that, he could have chopped that for hay, or he could have harvested it for seed. He chose not to. He planted the beans after he had sprayed off his cereal rye early. So a lot of flexibility in that. And I've got there just on the bullet points that all the great things that soil cover does. And ideally, you want to aim for 100% soil coverage. So it reduces evaporation, moderates soil temperature, suppresses weed growth, reduces compaction, provides habitat for soil biology. Next slide, please, Daryl. Okay, this is also photos taken on the same day, a mile apart in Beetle County. So you can't really see here on this field what's going on, although there's not a lot of cover on there. Looks like nothing's even been planted. Here you can see this is corn, probably right about that 6-leaf stage, give or take. This is taken in the middle of June. If you want to advance one, I'll see if the animation goes there. There we go. So there's a close-up of this field. So if you look and see there was actually soybeans planted on here. There was a pretty strong wind event that took place, and the soybeans were basically sandblasted off. There's not much more than a stem and maybe some of those small leaves right at the base of the plant. And so this is kind of a minimized disturbance thing. So this field actually here didn't have what I would call aggressive tillage, but it had some of that high-speed vertical tillage that's really popular today for a lot of our producers. And while it didn't really get rid of a lot of the residue, it kind of chopped it up from the previous year, left a lot of them on the surface. What happened with that wind event is it took all that residue, went airborne, and the soil was really exposed. So this is one of those minimized disturbance examples that shows a really high contrast. The same wind event that hit this field was only a mile apart. This field had a lot of residue on the surface. The corn plants are still looking pretty healthy, even though we're in a moderate drought at this stage. Next slide, please. Okay, maximize biodiversity. And so this can follow lots of different tracks. Most people, when you think of maximize biodiversity on cropland, you're probably thinking crop rotation. Yep, that's one great way to maximize biodiversity. And that's the example I'm going to use here with the picture of the cereal rye standing in here. That's my son. he's a little bit taller than that now, so. But that is Cereal Rye, it's head high on him at that point. One of those great ways that you can maximize biodiversity, if you're in corn, soybean rotation and putting small grains in there. Small grains are even in something that you can add on to this year yet. So if you are looking at a field thinking, I want to maximize that spring growing season because that's usually when we have the most moisture and cooler temps. There's still time to put in some of those small grains. I think oats would be a great option this year. Maybe even some spring wheat. Our demonstration farm in Beetle County is going to be putting in oats in hopefully on Friday. That's a good option to mitigate drought because the spring is traditionally our wettest time of year and coolest. Another option to maximize biodiversity is adding cover crops in. Cover crops can be highly flexible. The photos you're seeing here this is a full season cover crop that's put in for grazing. And this producer does this on a percentage of his field every single year. And he does it because it allows him to take some pressure off of his grasslands. And it also puts those livestock back onto the cropland and all the benefits that they provide. Photo on the far upper corner there, that is a picture from last year in Beetle County also. And this is small grains that were followed by a cover crop mixture for grazing. And what you're seeing there is the hot wire placed in between two paddocks, and the paddock on the left had just been grazed and they're about to move on to the one on the right. So a lot of flexibility in adding biodiversity and different plants onto your cropland soils. Next slide, please, Carol. This is a graph. I like to show this one because a lot of the argument would be, well, why would I plant cover crops? They're just going to use moisture for my following year's crop. And that's a valid argument. And yes, it's especially true when we're going into a drought. But on an average year in South Dakota, and this graph is really showing what happens when you have a fall planted cereal grain like either winter wheat for a cover or cereal rye, for example. It shows the green line is the field with a cover crop, and the brown line is the field without a cover crop, and it's showing moisture usage. And as you go along, yes, the cover crop is using moisture in the spring, but then when you terminate that cover, either crimp rolling or burning it off chemically, then what happens is that cover crop provides cover to the soil surface, keeps it cool, reduces evaporation. So over the course of the summer, you're actually saving moisture compared to the field that didn't have any cover on the soil surface. Next slide, please. The importance of this, I can't really hammer home any better than this photo here. That's a picture of the potential wording that we would have on our native prairie plants and especially our grasses. So they were very resilient to drought. Many of them were rooting down 6, 7, 8 feet deep or deeper. So they were pulling water from deep down the profile. So while we obviously can't maybe fully replicate that on cropland, we can do our best to mimic it through planting cover crops through crop rotation. And something that you can consider, especially if you've got problematic soil like saline soils, to putting those perennials back into the system. So, for example, some saline tolerant alfalfa or branch root trait alfalfa, and then some of our wheatgrasses on those cropland soils. Make them productive again, and then reduce those salts that are in the soils. This is a photo I like to show because it's from Yankton County. And this would have been one of those severe drought years that they had down there. And what I'm showing is actually a field that was cut for silage. And then that producer went in and put in a really simple mixture of turnips, radishes, and some annual ryegrass. So that's a really cheap mixture. You can probably do that one for $18 an acre or less. And this was actually a drought year when this photo was taken. So even in those drought years, put those covers in. It just takes a little bit of moisture to get them going, and then at least that soil is covered during the most critical wind erosion period during the year. Next slide, please. And last but certainly not least, integrating livestock back in our cropland. Livestock are important for several reasons. The big thing on cropland is that they help cycle nutrients. So when you look at this photo here, you see some cattle are out grazing, and this is into November. This photo was taken, and it was in a drought year. This was in 2017 as well. What they're doing is they're taking that residue, they're taking those plants, and they are processing it in their guts. And then it's coming out their back end, and we get all the benefits of that biology, their soil organic matter, and the nutrients that are provided. So they're basically walking processors of plant material that, because it's so dry, none of our biology is able to process it except for in that animal gut. Other great thing that I like about this is that you are able to save on feeding costs, equipment costs, all sorts of associated costs and labor if you have that available for grazing. This would have been a great winter if you had covered crops following a crop to graze throughout the winter, because you're mostly open all winter. So I'm aware of a couple producers that basically just took their cattle out here a week ago. They've been out grazing, rotating through some of the crop benefits. And I think one more slide, that should be it. Okay, thanks everyone for your time. Use those soil health principles. They can help mitigate some of the drought effects, and hopefully build a soil organic matter for you going into the future. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Ken. So yes, we're all going to send positive thoughts for the appropriate moisture for the spring, right? So I have an update here from Owen, and then after that, we're going to have some open discussion. So I just want to remind you too that there are some people with their water and find those.
Thanks, Cliff. Things that FSA can offer when we're talking about drought mitigation, or things that can help operations in times of drought. I guess my comment would be that FSA is more reactive than proactive. What you've just heard are ways to mitigate going into a drought situation. FSA would be at the table when the drought situation happens. We've got some disaster programs on the livestock side, livestock forage program, which pays on an animal unit basis or an acre basis, depending on the needs. We've got the ELAP program, Emergency Livestock Assistance Program. Doesn't really define it, but water hauling is available through that program for producers in times of drought. The Emergency Conservation Program, one that I'm responsible for, is for all things disaster, but one of them would be the EC6 practice, which provides livestock water in times of drought. There's an existing water that has failed due to drought. One thing to note with that, which plays into the prior presentation, is there has to be available grazing to utilize those water measures. Made a bunch of notes that are I guess those are the main ones. Again, our local service center would be the first point of contact for the producers. We don't have a lot of producers in the audience today, but as you work with those folks, just point them that direction if there's those needs out there. But again, FSA is more of that reactive nature than proactive. So we would have available measures to help get through the situation and provide those resources for those folks.
Great, thank you. At this point, I'm going to open the floor for some partners to engage in conversation. I just want to say thank you to the presenters so far. And then again, if there's people online that have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we'll come online and we'll get into turn the camera. So one of the things that our partners have been really great at is helping us with outreach with producers. So we provide the science and the technical assistance to the producers, and our partners are really great for being in contact. And with that, South Dakota Association of Conservation Districts has a platform in place set up, and it's called the Dakota Conservation Network. And I'm going to ask Katie to just speak on that here in a minute, and after Katie, Cindy Zink is going to speak about the network that they have.
All right. All good? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Hi, again, my name is Katie Youthy. I work for the South Dakota Conservation Districts under their locally led project. And today I'm here to highlight the Dakota Conservation Network, or DCN, and how it can support drought resilience efforts by connecting people to the resources they need. So to give a quick overview of what DCN is, it is a centralized hub that was designed to help landowners, producers, and communities easily find conservation programs, services, and resources, including those related to drought. It brings together federal, state, and local resources into one place, and it makes it easier to navigate assistance options and resources. And so how DCN can help with drought specifically? Well, drought assistance can be a bit complex because there are different agencies offering various programs. So when producers or landowners are online searching through all these different websites, it can be a bit overwhelming and time consuming and a bit of a scavenger hunt. And so DCN simplifies this by allowing users to search for drought-related supports, either by their location or keywords. They can search for programs of cost share opportunities, technical assistance, or emergency relief, or other resources as well. And specifically, I want to encourage that you guys, along with partners, share your drought-related programs, services, and resources onto DCN. The more organizations contribute, the stronger this tool becomes for those facing drought challenges or other conservation-related challenges. So if you have a resource to add, please visit the website at conservesd.org. And up top, there is an Add Help button. Click on that and a form will pop up where you can fill in your information and submit, because we'd love to get that listed onto the website. DCN is built to connect, making sure that the right information reaches the right people at the right time. And with 2025 shaping up to bring continued drought challenges, possibly having quick access to the right resources is more important than ever. So I please ask you to help us make it easier for people to find and use these resources and continue making DCN a useful tool for all. And I also have, there's a flyer I see that's being presented right now. I'll include that in the chat with an updated version for you to have to print out, share in your offices, or just to have on hand. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, or send me an email or give me a call, and I'll help you out as much as I can. So,
Very good. Any questions for Katie? Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'm going to pass the mic over here to Katie.
Thanks, Colette. Colette asked me today to talk about Growing Connections. Growing Connections is a platform that NRCS started, and we've been partnering to continue. So one aspect that it's grown into, it was just a booklet, and we still have this available that everyone can have, but it's also an app. So over there's a banner. It does have a little QR code for whether you're an iPhone user, an Android, and you can download it. What it provides is you can ask a question, and it could be answered either by a mentor. You can ask a direct question to the mentor, the farmer that has that experience, or you can ask the question and an NRCS professional can answer it, whether it's camp leader or a DC in the local office. Or SDSU, we've had SDSU extension personnel can also be tagged and answer those questions as well. So it's there for your use, whether you're a professional or a farmer professional as well. It's there to just provide that network and make those connections. And it has been revamped. It's a little more user-friendly that we hope, and if you have any problems with it, like it's not downloading or you're not being able to ask questions, you can give me a call, or Courtney Deppert has been our person that's been working on this. Drought brings in a lot of conversations. People get stressed, right? There's always opportunities that you aren't in control of and you need to talk with someone. So this is a perfect example for that. And there's other resources. So if you know producers that you're working with that have been showing signs of stress or unusual aspects, make sure they get connected with someone.
or they can call me and I can get those resources for them too. There is a network that will also, we have a link on our website too for those resources for mental health and stress. Colette, unless anyone has any questions, Growing Connections has kind of been growing. So we started out with the booklet and we're excited about how many mentors we have across the state. We have one in each county. And like I said, any of the NRCS people can be able to log in as their personal, professional advice as well, or they maybe are able to ask questions on something that they have on their homes too. So there's different ways you can list your question. So if it's strictly livestock or grassland or cropland or urban ag, that is also something that you'll get answers for specifically for those things. So any questions on Growing Connections? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to open the floor if anybody has any questions or any contributions regarding resources for producers or that sort of thing. And if someone online has a question, conversation, comment, please turn your camera on and we'll recognize you. Don't be shy. So. Well, if there are no more questions, and that's kind of been it's a pretty heavy topic, right? And if I would just kind of talk a little bit about visitation for the spring. But anyway, I appreciate you all coming together for that. So next on the agenda, then we'll move on, is the workload update for weather determination for highly vulnerable land.
All right, you got a couple maps in there. I'm not going to belabor it. You can look at it, look at the numbers, they just seem to stay kind of the same. Doesn't really change. We don't have an excessive workload. I'm sure by the end of the year, we'll still do 900 to 1,000 weather determinations, and we'll probably do anywhere from 1,400 to 1,800 highly vulnerable determinations. But outside of those numbers, does anybody have questions on wetland compliance or anything related to wetlands or highly vulnerable land or anything? Anybody online? All right.
Very good. Thank you, Dee. Okay, next on the agenda then, we'll move on. We have our South Dakota engineering update with Jim Reed.
Thanks, Glenn. Wait for the slideshow. I don't know when you get that joke. I can jump into it's kind of nice that I had electrical sciences got up here and talked about the key things I was going to maybe mention a little bit too, and I'll just reiterate those for everybody. We talked about NRCS technical assistance. It's important to note that we have a presence in every single county in the country. We have people who are either locally located out of an office in those counties or somewhere nearby in other counties. In the case of engineering, like I'll talk about, or just have an area of responsibility that's within that small area of multiple counties, whether it's engineers or CETs. And it's so important to note that we spend time conservation planning. We do planning with producers, and then we pick out, when we're doing the planning, we're talking about goals, objectives, what are the alternatives we're trying to pursue. And then it takes us over to our conservation practice standards that Jess talked about. And with our conservation practice standards comes the implementation of those practices. As an engineer standing up here in front of you, I can say we love standards. I stand up here and say, hey, all right, I'm going to pick out a conversation about ASTMs and ASD this and ASME that and all these different acronyms about what we do in the engineering world, but I won't bore you to death. But I want to talk about the fact that as part of the process in the engineering world, we also like to focus on that implementation side of those conservation practices with construction drawings, standard drawings, construction material specifications,
We love to be out in the field. We love to be working directly with the local field offices and the producers. So with that, my update, I'll go to the next slide right away, please, Daryl. So engineering technical assistance. A lot of times we like to just talk mostly about the funding and the programs and how much money we're kicking out the door. What each project costs, like in the watershed world, we're talking millions of dollars spent on flood retention projects, you know, all that great stuff. But we really need to get back down to what the technical assistance looks like. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we have in South Dakota in the engineering world. We have engineers and civil engineering technicians all across the state. I'm going to refer to my notes here, not including me. We have 13 engineers in the state. 9 of those engineers are licensed professional engineers. And we have 11 CETs located across the state. Those folks are in area offices in Rapid City, Pierre, Mitchell, and Brookings. And the CETs are either in those offices as well or located in Belfast, Sturgis, McIntosh, Phillip, Kennebec, Watertown, Atai, and Illinois. I'm starting to pass the test of being here in for a year and a half. I can't know who people are now. I can put faces to names. So that being said, I'm going to move into some of what we do, that design, installation, and construction stuff, the survey. We love to get out and you'll see us with our fancy equipment, our GPS equipment, our bathymetry boats. We get to take all that stuff we do in the field. We take it and develop it into plans, design calculations, documentation, our drawings, our specs. And then we can spend time out there doing construction layout and inspection and doing our as-bills. So real quick, I'm just going to kind of do a show and tell with pictures of the typical practices we do for engineering in the state. All right, next. Owen talked about the ECP program and the drought emergency assistance. FSA is the financial side, so you hear us say FA. NRCS is the technical side, TA for that. And EC6 you specifically mentioned, and you can't really read it from across the room, but it's the wells, the pipelines, the tanks to provide livestock water in drought situations. So we do a lot of that. Livestock water, broad sense, livestock water or otherwise. What we do engineering wise in the state is pipelines, tanks, pumps and wells, all different types of livestock watering facilities, the tire tanks, the metal ring, steel ring tanks. We've even done windmills. I don't think we do very many of those in South Dakota, but windmills are also a thing. Next. Livestock shelter structures. Yes, these are engineering well. It requires some calculations of wind loads. There's no wind in South Dakota. We do both portable and permanent installation of shelter structures, the windbreaks, and we also have the ability to put in shade structures, depending on the resource concern that's out there. Next. Stream crossings. This is a big one. I'm learning is pretty important in South Dakota. Stream crossings basically are a way to provide controlled access to keep cattle out of that water course. So there you see a few pictures of the installation of a rock stream crossing. These stream crossings can be those low water ford style crossings that are basically rock across the channel that conform to the existing channel. They're pretty unobtrusive. If you look at the bottom picture in the center, that's a finished crossing. You can't hardly even see the rock after it's done. But they can also be an embankment style with a culvert through the middle of the embankment. And what's nice about these is they have a secondary benefit of helping with grazing districts. A lot of times cattle have to wade through the slop of a stream and just wreck what's going on with the stream just to get to another part of the pasture. So stream crossings help with that as well. Next. Erosion control. I came up in the agency. I have 33 years with NRCS, been around a while. I remember finally a state conservation engineer in my former state who called this stuff our bread and butter. These were our bread and butter practices for erosion control on cropland. Grassed waterways, terraces, water and sediment control basins, or what we call WASCOBs, grade stabilization structures, just to name a few. Underground outlets tied in with terraces and WASCOBs. So our erosion control side of things is a lot of what you can physically see as far as what we would use the term structurally engineering in the state. If you were to drive down around the Newton Hills country or south of Canton, you could see a lot of the terraces like you see in the upper right, and the grass waterways are always around us. Couple examples of some pretty severe gullies up there. Erosion control. All right, next. Irrigation. So irrigation in NRCS always ties back to water savings. We're trying to conserve our groundwater. So the irrigation practices that you would see within the state here would be the flood to pivot conversions, where we have any existing flood irrigation happening, we're going to convert those over to center pivot. Sometimes we'll actually just re-nozzle a pivot to achieve water savings, and other times we'll actually go from the flood to subsurface. So upper left is a typical pump, vertical turbine pump installation. Top center is what we call a flow meter. It's a propeller style flow meter. Upper right, we've all seen the center pivots out in the field. Then the bottom pictures all relate to what's called subsurface drip irrigation. Pretty complex, a lot of engineering in those. The big red things you see there in the center picture, those are giant sand filters. Water that comes into a subsurface drip irrigation has to be filtered quite heavily, or you end up with issues with the drip tape that's buried in the ground. You have to tear it up if it doesn't work. Next. Stream bank stabilization. You know, after the floods of June 2024, last year, the big floods that hit the Vermilion and the Big Sioux and points downstream, we saw a lot of this happen, right? We're involved in a big way in rather large and complex projects like this. You get real expensive, right? And I just wanted to point out that we can do, typically what we'll do with stream bank stabilization is our, what we call stream bars, to redirect the flow away from that bank, try to stabilize it. Or we'll do an entire riprap toe, which is the bottom left. Bottom left is just a stock photo I found from a project we've done in the past, but all the other photos up there are from an actual project that is currently under construction for the Shannon River Sioux Tribe. It's about an hour northeast of Eagle Butte on the Morrow River. That's the actual Morrow River channel right there. We're putting in some massive stream bars. So if you look at your slide, you look at the picture on the lower right, those are several of our engineers from the Rapid City Field Support Office. Zach and Lander and Seth standing on 11 bars. And just to give you a scale on this, I can point it out. Yeah, the bottom center picture. I think the embankments here in some areas, that vertical bank, it's actually washed out of roads several times. The EIA has to reroute and rebuild around this embankment because of the erosion. The truck in the center there is a massive construction truck. Some of these banks are 25 to 30 feet high. It's a pretty big project. It's gonna be really cool when it's done. They should be starting construction here again real soon. They shut down for the winter. All right, next. Our small scale. Throughout the term urban ag, but a lot of times we aren't just in the urban world when we're working on these projects. They just happen to be small producers, small scale producers. And what we're doing for those in the engineering world typically are the surface drip irrigation, the emitters for the crops and the vegetables or the plants that are being grown, as well as some roof runoff capture and retention of that water to reuse it in irrigation. And you see the bottom right there, some of the typical high tunnel situations. I'll just point out high tunnel is not an engineering practice. You don't want us to engineer your high tunnel. Be a little too much. But yeah, we do a lot of work in conjunction with those projects. Next. And then livestock waste control and our technical service provider or TSP program. We have a specialized team, the Ag Nutrient Management team based out of Mitchell with some staff also in Canton and the Hayti field offices. These folks get between 40 and 50 new nominations every year for assistance with animal feeding operations, AFOs, CAFOs, you hear that term thrown around. Every year they get that many. Typical practices that they do for those folks are waste separation facilities and basins, holding ponds, bedded pack and deep pit barns, compost facilities, and animal mortality facilities. Oh, and also vegetative treatment systems. Just a few examples of some pictures of, we have a picture of a feedlot that happens to have both a barn under construction and a holding pond and a concrete settling basin for the feedlot. Bottom left is another concrete settling basin that has an outlet that's being taken out to a vegetative treatment area. Example of a little bit of what our drawings kind of look like, just to throw that out. Center right is a compost or mortality stacking facility. They both tend to look the same. And the upper right is a typical fed pack beef barn. So my team gives Emily's point to looking at poop is fun. A couple of engineers on my staff work very closely with the team, or CET and an engineer on my staff work very closely with the team and the technical service providers who provide some of the design assistance that we use. The TSPs are basically consulting firms that help us with the complex structural barn designs, because we don't have structural expertise in our agency. It's something that we're very short on nationwide. It's just not a thing. We don't hire structural engineers. We hire agricultural and civil and environmental folks, but not structural. So we utilize TSPs very heavily for that. All right, next. Okay, I don't know, are these links live for you? Can you click that top one, or the second one down, the USDA NRCS YouTube channel? You want to get that? Probably not. Okay.
Share it on my screen. Second.
Sure. So these are just a few resources that I think are excellent to help people visualize what we do, not just in the engineering world, but also the agronomic and legal side world too within NRCS. USDA NRCS YouTube channel is really well done. I think the videos are there. Yeah, there it is. So the video playlist, if you click the playlist link there, there's a playlist called Conservation at Work. Is that what I call that, right? There they are. So there are videos in here that talk about many more different practices, both in the agronomic and the engineering world. This is also linked on our South Dakota NRCS webpage. I just wanted everybody to be aware. This actually shows you what a lot of these conservation practices look like on the landscape. It's a great resource. And anytime you go to any other state's webpage, right, you can go to nrcs.usda.gov, you can go to South Dakota's page, you can go to any other state in the country. I'll point out that Illinois has a very excellent set of videos that are also live linked in that slideshow. They talk about a couple more engineering practices that aren't in this Conservation at Work series. They talk about grid stabilization control structure at the bottom of a grass waterway. Very well done. I use them a lot just to help new folks in our agency understand what it is we do on the landscape. You can see it. All right. So you don't have to share this last slide, no big deal. I wanted to talk a little bit also, I'm going to talk a little bit about EWP, and I thought I'd talk a little about watershed as well. EWP is our emergency watershed program. And if you want to pull up those two pictures I sent you, Randy, are you able to share those up there? So we, as a result of the June flooding events last year, we had sponsor requests come in for help on 2 projects. Both of those projects have now received approved funding, and we're working on agreements with the sponsors to be able to get construction started on those projects. One project is, it's on the 309th Street Bridge over the Vermilion River in Clay County. This is going to be a stream bank stabilization project. We're working in conjunction with FEMA. You can just see on the lower right corner there, there's kind of a bridge. You can see a rail. That's the bridge right there, 309th Street Bridge. There's the Vermilion River, and that's what the banks look like after all that flooding came through. In EWP, we don't repair anything. We just help to protect infrastructure that's at risk. So if another flooding event comes through, we got to looking at this bridge, and FEMA also did an inspection on it. They determined that the bridge needs some major repair work underneath the bridge and the channel. We can't work, it's funny, this relationship between NRCS and FEMA. We can't work within the actual right-of-way. So FEMA is going to work within the right-of-way with the bridge itself and repairs to the channel and riprap tow and that sort of thing. And we're going to do a length of reach both upstream and downstream of this bridge to help stabilize these banks. We kind of have a three entity partnership here: FEMA, NRCS, and Clay County. And the other one, this is the erosion caused when Dimmick Lake overflowed after the event. Down by Dimmick, South Dakota, is the Game Fish and Parks area. So Game Fish and Parks reached out, submitted a sponsor request to help do a rock chute and an outlet repair for this emergency spillway on this dam structure. Pretty significant set of hiccups there that we're going to try and deal with. The agreement is just about done, ready to go to get Game Fish and Parks rolling on this, and then we'll be working with them on construction. Both of these projects should be starting construction this summer. So that's our EWP. And then watershed, we're actively working with the city of Mitchell. And inside our watershed operations branch, we have the EWP program, we have the PL 566 watershed program. We also have what's called the watershed rehabilitation program. We don't use rehab at all in South Dakota because it is tied to existing structures that were built under PL 566 and had a significant change in their hazard to downstream communities. Like if one of these structures were to fail, would it wash people away, would it kill people, would it destroy homes and communities? That's where rehab comes in to make those existing watershed PL 566 structures more able to handle the events, protect those communities downstream. We don't have that situation in South Dakota. None of our existing structures are high hazard or change hazard. We are working with just the PL 566 itself on a new project with the city of Mitchell on Firesteel Creek and Lake Mitchell. That's in progress. More to come on that in future committee meetings. And then we're also exploring the sponsor request coming in from the Angostura Irrigation District out west. Hopefully do some irrigation, water management, and upgrades to their technology to help them conserve water. So my last slide, if you see it in your handout, I just basically put up our motto. I love this motto: people helping people help the land. That's what we do. When he said, we're here to help conserve and wisely use our resources. We're not here to say, well, this is a super important practice because it addresses climate change. It's climate smart. It's just, you look at what we do, what Kent showed for what's happening with retention of crop residue and soil health and keeping soil out where it's supposed to be. Our engineering practices help to accomplish the same thing, but keeping soil where it is, doesn't move, doesn't leave. All that is just basically wise use of our resources. And we're here providing the technical assistance to try to do that, help people help the land. So some of the societal benefits, of everything that we've talked about up to this point. Keeping soil where it is so we don't have any downstream impacts. We've got this dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico that always comes up every, I don't know how many years. Anybody ever heard of the Raccoon River in Iowa? It's a big deal for nitrate loading, right? That is the city of Des Moines water supply. It's really important that we take care of not only the runoff, but reducing groundwater and surface water contamination. We do all of this with all of the different practices we do. Ag nutrient management team works on nutrient management plans for proper application and timing and location and maintenance of offsets from wetlands for livestock manure coming out of feedlots or swine facilities. We also have reduced energy and fuel use with our irrigation practices. We might put a easier, more efficient pump in. We might change the fuel source from diesel to electric. All of this stuff has an impact on a producer's bottom line, while also providing broader societal benefits overall. And I'll just point out real quick, the integrated report from DNR for last year came out. Just a couple stats from that. We have over 12,000 miles of rivers and streams in South Dakota. And of the ones that were assessed, about 78% of those didn't support at least one beneficial use. So we do have the need to treat resource concerns for our surface water reaching our rivers and streams. We have 577 lakes and reservoirs. 180 of those have assigned recreational or fish life beneficial uses, and 87 of them are on the impaired list, what's called the 303D impaired water bodies list. We have 1.8 million plus freshwater wetlands, and those are filters directly to our groundwater. So everything we're doing with our technical assistance has a direct impact on our groundwater, our surface water, and our neighbors downstream. So that's pretty much it for me. Anybody have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. That's a lot of information. We really appreciate it. And so the fun thing is seeing all these science practices, and then now we can look at some of the activities we have through conservation planning for financial assistance. And with that, I'd like to introduce Valerie Praise, who's our program.
Thank you, Glenn. Each week, my cohorts and I get to participate in an exercise where we summarize what we did the prior week. And if they ever change it to photos, I know who I'm going to go seek out. We had some pretty cool photos today. Great projects, good explanations of what we do. I'm going to give a summary of our financial assistance dollars. I've got a table or a handout here. It was not included in your packet, but I feel it's pretty straightforward. We're going to run through it. And if you have questions, be sure and let me know. A couple things not listed on your handout, but included in your packet is there's currently a sign up for an RCPP project up in the northeast part of the state. It's the Northeast Glacial Lakes project. And, so that is open for participation. We're accepting applications. It's a second batching period. So we've taken the applications that we had received prior to November. We're running them through the ranking system, making selections. We still have some funds available. And so there's an opportunity up there for those producers. Also, we have a batching date coming for the Power Dam Road fire and the Lincoln fire in Millette County. So that sign up period is open for those that are impacted by either of those fires. So look in your packet, there's a map in the news release. So we're working on doing our contract management. So if you look at our handout here, it's that top table. We have our contracts listed by program. So for CSP, we've got 1,043 contracts. EQIP, we've got 1,179 active contracts, and RCPP, we've got 39 active contracts. And activities that we're completing on those active contracts across the state include our contract status reviews. We're checking in with producers, reminding them what they have scheduled for this year, and completing any modification or schedule updates based on their implementation plans. In addition to that, we're working through our pre-approval and obligation process for our CSP and EQIP programs. And we just started our conservation stewardship program pre-approval process. There are 90 applications listed in the selected, but most of those are from our renewal process that we completed in the fall. We haven't gotten a good start yet on the new applications that we're processing for the spring. We've got about $10 million left to add to the pre-approved applications. So we're going through the ranking process or finalizing the ranking process, get ready for those pre-approvals. Our EQIP applications, we pretty much have all of those selected that we have funds for at this time. We've got just a couple of fund pools left. We had received an allocation earlier in the year and then received another $5 million around that December timeframe. So we pre-approved applications within those allocated funds. We've requested more funds, so we're hopeful we can pre-approve some more, but we haven't heard back for sure on our request. For RCPP, I listed what our activity on our agreements includes in that paragraph. I will add that we have 6 agreements that were selected and 24 that have gone through or are going through the negotiation process. Some of them are paused due to the funding source, but we're hopeful to proceed with those soon. Lastly, I'm going to wrap up with our easement summary, and we're in the process there too of finalizing our easement selections. We've got about $3.2 million to use for easements within the state. Like I said, we don't have everything finalized yet. It's also been impacted by the pause on Inflation Reduction Act funds. We would need about 10 million to fund all of our WRE apps. We're able to fund about a quarter of the requested dollar amount for our ag land easements. You know, we have 11 apps. Our allocation was about 650,000. So we have to request additional money to fund one of those. But programs, that's kind of what I got for a summary today. If there's any specific question, I'll take them now, or you can get a few minutes back.
Okay, any programs questions? Thing in the chat there, and I'm sure you'll alert us if there is something. So great, thank you very much, Val. Okay, with the conservation planning and the engineering practice, all these practices soil is the foundation of all of that. So I have the pleasure today to introduce Cheyenne Young, who is our assistant state soil scientist, and she's going to speak today on a project the soil division is working on.
Yeah, so I'm working on a project that I'm calling the South Dakota Soil Health Study. So we'll just go through a couple minutes to get the slides pulled up. Really the point of the project is we're just trying to find data, collect data to show really how like the differences in soil management can affect your soil health. So we're just trying to find the data and collect all that data to kind of drive home that point. So I started this project, it kind of started in 2007, and it's kind of evolved over the years. The way that we're doing it now, I started in spring of 2024. And again, we're just trying to show how the different management practices can affect soil health over time.
And if you just try to, well, maybe you should stand back a little bit more so the person's hearing through the emu owl will be able to hear you better also.
Oh, stand there.
So you're also
Yeah.
facing back. So your voice is going across that device there.
So when selecting a site, we choose two different sites. They each have to have the same soil series, and I kind of want them to be as close as possible. Ideally, across the fence from each other would be the ideal situation. That's not always possible. And then two different management types. So whether that be native grass or we're looking at no-till versus conventional tillage, that sort of situation. And then we want them to be no more than 3 to 5 miles apart because we don't want weather patterns or different landscapes, landforms to affect the physical soil properties that we're looking at. So, like I said, ideally, we want them to be across the fence from each other, like you can see in that picture, as close to each other as possible. So, the different analysis that I'm looking at is I do infiltration. I look at infiltration with Saturos. Have you guys all seen where we pound the rings into the ground? You take the saran wrap, do first inch, second inch. So the Saturos are a more fancy, a little more temperamental way to look at that. It kind of takes out ground conditions out of the equation for this. So when you're using the rings, they're affected by whether you're in a drought like we are now, or if it's a wet period. The Saturos take that out. They measure your infiltration from a saturated state of the soil. And then we also look at bulk density. I do both of those myself. And then we send off we send off samples for chemical and biological analysis to a private lab. And we're looking at depths of 0 to 3, 0 to 6, 6 to 12, and 12 to 24 inches. And here's a list of the different chemical and biological analyses that we're going to be looking at. I just want to give a shout out to Kent Bleeger. He did the legwork, picking out which analyses that we're looking at. I'm not going to bore you with all of these. We're just going to go hit main topics. So one of the bigger tests that we run is the Haney. It gives us soil respiration, pH, organic matter percentage, lime, and soluble salts. The biggest ones out of this are organic matter percentages and soil respiration. So the soil respiration gives us an idea of how active the microbes in the soil are. Next slide. And then we're looking at the phospholipid fatty acids, or PLFA. That's giving us an idea of what kind of bacteria or fungi are currently in our soil. And that also affects how our organic materials are broken down and at what rate they're broken down. And again, those can be affected by what plant community you have, different environmental conditions, soil characteristics and management. And with those environmental conditions, I want to go back to site selection and sample timing. I am trying to collect the samples on the same day or within a day or two of each other. Again, so environmental factors aren't affecting our sampling results as much. You can go to the. And then wet aggregate stability. I talked about this a little bit when he was talking about the soil health scorecard. So we're just trying to figure out how our soil aggregates are reacting to different disturbances, whether that be raindrops or flooding or drought, and what their ability to store water and move air through the soil is. And then with the aggregate stability, then aggregate stability has the influence on root growth. So whether the roots can move freely or are constricted in some sort of way. So the goals of this project are just to provide the soil health data to our landowners to help them make more educated decisions on their management and to help educate the public and field office staff on how the programs that they're working so hard to implement are affecting the soil health. And of course, we're always trying to advocate for why soil health is important. And this is just a fun little picture. So those two soil samples that you can see there were taken about 10, 15 feet away from each other. The top one is taken out of a CRP, a plot of CRP that had been implemented about 20 years ago and has been in CRP for those 20 years. And the bottom one is a no-till field. So you can just see, first of all, the main difference is the color and then the structure differences. So the bottom one is kind of breaking apart. You can see like a little bit of that platy structure from compaction. And then obviously you can see the amount of roots that are in that top core versus that bottom. That is all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. Lots of exciting stuff happening in this. Thank you. Can't wait for the field season, right? So, all right. On the agenda, we have a partnerships and NRCS agreement update. And today is March 12th. And I'm hoping that maybe in another week or 2 weeks or so, or maybe 3, that we'll have a better update. And maybe they'll have more information as far as our opportunity to provide a cooperative conservation agreement. So stay tuned for hopefully some good news. Okay, the last item on our agenda today is a round robin of conservation partners updates. And unfortunately, Matt Atwell with his River had messaged that he's not feeling very well today. So unless he came online, we'll move forward with other partners who are in the list, which would be Ducks Unlimited and the Conservation Technology Information Center. And the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So yes, Bruce, you'd like to have the mic to
Yeah, thanks, Colette. And good afternoon, everybody. Just a little bit on Ducks Unlimited. Big thing for us lately, I guess, has been rolling out of our new RCPP project. That's one of the projects that's currently under the pause category or yellow. We're a year into that project. We already have 28 signed landowner agreements. So we're just really optimistic that things will get moving along and we can get that project back on track. Feedback we're getting is that it's really really well received by our cooperators. They really like the model, the simplicity. Team already has like 30 some new potential contracts in the hopper. So as soon as that gets back on track, we can get back to work and really get some good work done in South Dakota. Hoping that's temporary. The closer we get to field season, which all of a sudden feels like it's here, makes me a little bit nervous. But like I said, we're optimistic we'll get back up and running. Other than that, we do have 5 field staff across eastern South Dakota, biologists and agronomists working with farmers and ranchers, primarily with options and cost share for restoring grasslands, restoring wetlands, and improving grazing infrastructure or rotational grazing practices. So things like cross fence and water development and grazing systems to help keep our wetland and grassland intact across the state. So, if you have any questions for me, I'll be here afterwards, but happy to answer any questions. Thank you. Did want to say a shout out, big thanks to Matt Morlock, Battle Crabs. They've been super helpful navigating this process. And I want to say that, and also to Jessica's team, working with Emma and Jim throughout the process. Been a really good partnership working with the NRCS to make this program work. So they're super helpful. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm Jennifer and the South Department of Environmental Resources. Did you have something you want to update on? I'm going to ask you to come up here by this, please, because the people online have given some feedback that when people are closer to this, then they'll have something better.
Yeah, Bruce was heard really well where he was standing at and facing.
Chris Gilmark is coming up. Thank you. And Laura will be on deck.
Thanks, Bruce, over here, right? Around here somewhere.
There you go.
All right, Chris Dozark, South Dakota Department of Ag and Natural Resources. I'm our 319 coordinator for the Watershed Protection Program. Just a couple updates. In December, we had 4 applications come in for our 319 funding for FY25. Request was for a little over $4.6 million. We had about $1.8 million to give out. So it was kind of talked through internally and then through our task force, Bush River implementation project. Came in for $2.2 million, and they were, if we get our funding, we'll be awarded a little over $800,000 for them. Big Sioux River project, continuation of their project. They came in for a little over $1 million, and recommended funding for them is $525,000. The Prairie Coteau project, up in the northeast part, kind of a collaboration or a continuation of the Northeast Glacial Lakes project and the what was the other one? Upper Big Sioux, and went together, and they came in for a little over $1 million, and they're going to be funded at a little over $450,000. Then the Rapid Creek Watershed project, which is a new one, kind of a protection planning. Rapid Creek, they came in for $200,000, and we are funding forward. So the nice thing with 319 and all these other projects is kind of leveraging the funding through other conservation organizations. Each of us kind of have our own goals, but collaboration makes funding go farther. So that's kind of a nice thing with different programs. Along with that, South Dakota DANR was awarded some funding through the state legislature for the Big Sioux River watershed, putting in riparian buffers, our riparian buffer initiative. Update at this point for the Big Sioux. At this time, we've enrolled 44 contract, protecting a little over 719 acres at a cost of around $1.5 million. So those are 10-year contracts. kind of a working lands program to where they could utilize some of that grass outside of our recreational season. We do have 39 other potential contracts, looking at around 708 acres with a cost of about a little over $2 million. So we have $3 million total, so we're actually probably a little over potential there, which is good. And then we went in and got some ARPA funding for a statewide riparian buffer project. Right now we have 16 projects contracted, protecting 812 acres at a cost of a little over $1.3 million. We do have 12 potential signups for that statewide. I would like to shout out to staff from Game Fish and Parks, Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, for 319 projects, as well as NRCS, all collaborated with us on bringing us collaborations between our programs to help fund some of these RBI programs practices. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Laura Taylor, South Dakota Grasslands Initiative. Looking at the agenda, I'm between you and lunch, so I'll make this as short and sweet as I'm capable. So two main things that I want everyone here to know. So back me up if you don't know what the initiative is, find me at the end, or if you'd like to grab some of my handouts, please do. But we've got some work groups focusing on different areas. One of them is focused on how do we connect producers to the programs available. So that work group's been collaborating with Dakota Conservation Network and having conversations about what can we do to recruit more contractors to also put their information on there. So know that Katie and the project is very welcome that if you know somebody that puts in fence or water lines, they can also use that network to be a resource location there as well. So please get the word out on that. The other work group we have is Grasslands Education, and they've been putting together some grab-and-go activities that are available to check out. So if you or someone you know is asked to go to a youth program or some type of event that they'd like to have some activity and not have to come up with it themselves, we've got totes available around the state. Right now, they're just getting dropped off in Rapid City, Fort Pierre, Watertown, and Sioux Falls, and we're working on some fundraising, put out some other totes in more rural areas around the state. If you want to see kind of what the teacher guide looks like, let me know and I can email you that. But it's been a really fun project to see us doing exactly what we wanted to do, of bringing everyone together with different perspectives. So we've got the youth educators, the biologists, the graphic design experts on the team, and everyone pulling together this really neat project. So it's been great to see that succeed. We'd love to see it getting used.
Very good, thank you. I think Ryan Henniger, unless he's come on, he may have had to step off the call. But what he wanted to bring to attention is the Conservation in Action Tour. And there you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to this group. My name is David Ferbata. I'm Communications Director with CTIC. And as was noted, we've got a great farm tour coming up in Sioux Falls, May 6 and 7. I just shared with you a link to the agenda. Some of the things that we're doing is a behind-the-scenes tour at Poet. So we're going to look at their one of their facilities that uses gas and energy, alternative energy sources, including gas from the Sioux Falls municipal area, as they are trying to create a carbon-free biofuel by their goals in 2050. I think this is going to be something that a lot of people don't have a chance to see. Obviously, biofuels are becoming more and more important to producers around the country and in South Dakota as a natural market for their commodity crops. We're also looking at a behind-the-scenes tour at the USGS Aero Center. And our hallmark farm stop is going to be at the Stiefvater Farm. That's in Salem. And we're going to spend quite a bit of time there, probably 2 hours. We're working with the South Dakota Soil Health Coalition on that stop, obviously NRCS, and a lot of other in-country partners as we look to bring really what is a multidisciplinary group together. There are quite a few farmers who attend this tour, but what makes it unusual and kind of unique is that it is what the closest thing to a national tour in terms of its audience. Agribusiness executives, conservation professionals, legislators, policymakers, and academics all come together to really get that on-farm experience, so we can all work together in understanding what challenges producers have and what solutions we can create for them going forward. It's a 2-day tour. It starts with a banquet and it ends with another banquet. So it's a good time. I hope all of you will consider attending, meeting your colleagues there. Please do feel free to extend the invitation to your farming clients and the landowners that you work with, if relevant for the area, and also your networks to come together as conservation professionals during this time. So happy to answer any questions, and I know there's some materials that I shared that might be circulated as well.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so please see the information in the packet for details and contact information. And yeah, there's like 4 or 6 busloads of people that might be coming in, that will be coming through South Dakota, and a big chance in the showcase our state web conservation material. So with that, we're at the end of our agenda. And look for any other partners. Yes. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yes, Matt had been not that well with the South Dakota Business Firm, was not feeling well, but he had provided a handout, and this in the so thank you for reminding me of that. Anyone from the other departments? And yeah, that's done it for
All right, so first, thank you so much for all of our presenters today. Really good information to share, especially as we prepare for this next season. So again, as I mentioned in my opening comments, we're all in this together in different ways. We need to be able to lean on each other and find ways to continue getting the good work done across South Dakota. And it really does take every single one of us in this room and everybody who's on the call. So thank you for all of your hard work in pushing for this information and getting this mission of conservation actually delivered, because it takes everyone. So just thank you. Thank you for your time today. And I hope you have a safe trip home.